Do. Oh, yeah. I'll be with you in a minute. Just give me a second. I'm just looking for some players. As a matter of fact, maybe some tables somewhere. Let's see. Pathfinder Roll20. Log in to view more information. Yeah, I should probably log in. All right, let's log in. I'm not a robot.
I am not a robot. I am not a robot. Yes, I'm not a robot. All right, there we go.
Let's see, what have we got going here? Okay, so quick references. Cert by United Kingdom on Dungeons and Dragons. No, let's see. Any country. Let's edit my preferences quickly. Okay, GMT, right. Availability, yeah, right. Cities, Tokyo. There we go, Tokyo. That's good. Oh, that makes sure I'm perfect. Apply to that. Now, let's see who's around or who's online. Pathfinder campaign, Midoa's quest. You're traveling. Oh, that's interesting. Let's have a look at that one. One player still needed. I quite like that. That's the creator. Let's have a look at the creator. Based in the UK. Interesting. 1 year of experience. Okay, intermediate level experience. All right, so it's a younger kind of GM. I like that. I like that. Maybe I could send them a message. Let's see. Good luck with the game, I suppose. Good luck with the game. Hello. Saw your game and just wanted to wish you luck with it. Sounds fun. Send. There we are. Well, now someone has got a link from me saying good luck and I hope for your game. What am I looking at here? I'm of course looking at RPGTablefinder.com. That's the website that we created. That's right, the Web Goblin and myself created for you guys. We so often got on the channel requests. Where do I find games? Where do I find games? Well, this is where you find games. 780 of them currently available, over 11,600 role players. It's just insane. So this is where it is. It's all free to use. Come along, find your game. It is built from the ground up by us. We respond to requests. We've got new features coming up. We've got all kinds of things. There's private messaging. There's this, there's that. It really is a lot of fun. And so many people don't seem to know that it exists. And that's why I'm starting it off at the beginning of this adventure. At the beginning of this adventure, look at me, I'm already getting ready to play the game. Meanwhile, this is actually a video. Oops. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. Today, apart from looking at where to find games and players, we're also going to be looking at what should you look for in players when they apply to join your game. Not all of us have the luxury of having a group of friends who want to play with us. Sometimes we do have to cast our net wider, and whether that is finding someone to play with at your local gaming store, which we always will highly recommend you go and have a look at first, or whether it's finding people to play online, it doesn't really matter. You need some criterion that are going to allow you to determine what makes a good player or a bad player, and what makes a player, or what determines whether a player is going to fit in your game or not. And so I've come up with this list. These are 3 things that I look for in players that are interested in joining my game. And it is hit or miss. There's no right or wrong answer here. But these are the things that I look for when I look for a new player. So we look for interest in a whole lot of different things. We're going to unpack that a little bit later on. We look for engagement. Engagement with what? Well, there are a few things that they should be engaged with and a few things that they shouldn't be engaged with. And that we're going to look at in the middle of the video. And then towards the end of the video, we're going to look for balance. Can they actually balance on a tightrope over a pit of spikes? That, for me, is one of the critical components of any kind of player that's going to join my game, because ultimately, that's a skill that you want to look for. No, it isn't. It isn't. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. Interest in the game, interest in the system, and interest in the character. So often I get players who want to join my game and they don't have all three of those things. Now, why are those three things important? Well, interest in the game. To begin with, the characters, the players need to be interested in the game. So when I post up a game, whether it's on RPG Table Finder or wherever it might be, and I say, oh, I've got this idea for a world that's been blown apart and the characters live on airships and they sail around and they do this and they do that and everything. And I get a player saying, oh, yeah, I'd like to play. Okay, what would you like to play? Oh, I don't know. Well, did you read the one paragraph world write-up? Oh, yeah, no. That's not interest in the game. That's just someone who wants to play. There's a big difference. I want someone who wants to grip into my world with both hands and say, yes, this is a space I want to explore. Otherwise, I might as well just use a generic system, a generic setting. That, to me, is the difference. So I look for a player who's interested in my game, or whom asks me anyway, well, you didn't say much about the game world. I want to know about your setting. Ah, now that's got me excited. That's someone that I want to play with. So I look for someone who is interested in my game. I then look for someone who's interested in the system. Now, this for me is absolutely critical. If the player comes to me and says, oh, I don't really know the system, but I have bought all of the books and I'm going to start reading them tonight, and by tomorrow I'll give you a 5-page write-up. That for me is something that shows interest from the character, from the player, I should say, not from the character, from the player. This video is all about players. So it shows interest in the system. If I have someone saying, oh, I want to play in your game, but I absolutely hate that system that you're using. Can't you use another system? No, I can't. And you can't be part of my game either. Why? Because throughout the game, you're going to be constantly going, oh, well, you see, if we were just using that system, this wouldn't happen. No, well, you see, there's another failing of the system. Yeah, well, you see, this is just why it's a crap system. You don't want that negativity at your table. You want your players to be focused on their characters, not on why they were right and why the system was wrong. There isn't a perfect system out there as far as I know. There's not one that satisfies everybody's desires. So you need someone who's bought into your system as well. You don't want someone who is just disinterested or doesn't like it. And then they need to be interested in their character. And this for me is something that's particularly important, is that I often get players who go, oh, here's a character, don't know who it is, some fighter, generic barbarian, rage thing, don't worry about it, it's okay. Oh, I hate that. I want someone who's interested in their character. They need to want to know where their character's going and what their character's goals and ambitions are and why their character's doing certain things. That for me is critical. That for me is important. I want to see that kind of interest. So those are the three areas that I look for interest: in the game, in the system, and in the character. And that is absolutely important. Absolutely important for me. We then look at engagement. Now, we're not talking about long-term engagement. We're talking about how does the player interact with the world. Now, this step does require the player already to be sitting around your table, whether that's online or in real life, and for them to have played a session 0. Assumedly, you're going to be doing a session 0 anyway. Don't think that it's too late at that point after session 0 to then politely uninvite people. It can still be done, and it should still be done for a whole lot of reasons. Session 0s are going to give you insight into how that person works, how they operate, what their body odor is like, whether they, are nice people or not. There's all those kind of factors that go on top of this, by the way. These are just the fundamentals that I look for in terms of players themselves. So when we talk about engagement, do they engage with the world that they are in? Do they engage with, oh, well, the world had this ancient Egyptian feel, so my character's name is Marjorie. Marjorie? Really? Marjorie. That's your character's name in an Egyptian setting. You don't want to go with something like Nefertari or Nefertiti or Cleopatra, perhaps? No. You're going with Marjorie. Not engaging in my world. Don't want you in my world. Goodbye, because it means you don't really care. Don't like that. Just goodbye. Goodbye. Do they engage with their fellow PCs? There's nothing worse. Yeah, all right, so these characters are all busy doing that thing. Okay, great. I go up and I hit it. Do you talk to your fellow PCs? Do you engage with them? Do you ask them about their goals, their desires, their hopes, and their dreams? If the player doesn't, if there isn't any engagement with their fellow PCs, if they treat them as mechanical pieces on a chessboard, arrivederci, goodbye, so long, farewell, sayonara, because that is not someone that you want at your table necessarily. Now, bearing in mind, of course, and I should have probably put this at the front of the video, but this is how I look for players. It might not necessarily be how you look for players. You might want players who've got amazing rules knowledge and who are very technically proficient and who don't care about this kind of stuff. Maybe that doesn't appeal for you. That's absolutely fine. It's absolutely valid. I'm not saying that it's the wrong way, it's the wrong type of player that you want. I'm saying it's about finding a player that works for you and your table. So I want a player who engages with my PCs, and then I want a player who engages with my NPCs, because that is absolutely critical. Do they talk to the NPCs? Do they even acknowledge that the NPCs exist? How do they talk to the NPCs? Do they treat them as if they're just information counters? I walk up to the blacksmith and I ask them where the Goblin Cave is. The blacksmith doesn't know who you are, doesn't care who you are, why are they going to even answer who? Well, so I care about players who engage with the NPCs and talk to them as if they are real. It means the whole world is going to feel a lot more engaged with. The game is going to feel that much better. So that's what I look for when I talk about engagement. Finally, when we talk about balance, balance is always going to be tricky, and it is in the eye of the beholder what is too much and what is not enough. And so when we look at balance, there's 3 areas that are, well, best for you to judge after session 0. So we look for obsession. A player who comes to me, hi, okay, so I've got my 15-page backstory ready for you, and it's got all of the annexation notes, and there's maps of all of the buildings that they were in and ever lived in, and I've also done a map of the castle that they grew up in. And on Tuesday, the handcrafted mannequin arrives, that's life scale of my character. I also will be dressing as my character, and I will also have a face mask on, which is my character, and then I want you to only talk to me as my character. I don't exist in the game. You see, that's too far. That's too far. Create a backstory. Yes, maybe it's a lengthy backstory. Great. But giving that to the GM's never going to read that. Never going to read that. Never in a million years. So it shows that the player is more interested in the character they've created. They're an author. They're wanting to explore the character, which is good. I mean, it's brilliant. We want that to happen. But there is a fine line between being obsessive and between being prepared. A prepared player is someone who's got a good character and has definitely put in a lot of good thought. Obsessive is someone who's put in too much thought. Narrative and system. This is where there's a balance. All right, well, I've created a character. I had a few points left over, so I've given them calligraphy and origami as 2 other skills, which I know they don't do anything from a game perspective, but I put them in anyway because I thought that's what one of their hobbies. They would have done that as a hobby. That I really like, where there is a narrative build to the character and that is underpinned by a strong system build. It doesn't have to be a perfect character. It doesn't have to be an optimized character that's going to kill everything on the first blow. It simply needs to be a character that's used the system, but that is still telling me a good story. I like the story component, obviously. That's what this whole channel's about. So that is something that I definitely look for. Is there a narrative and system strength to the character and to the player that has created that character? And then finally, I look for play share. Now, play share might sound a little bit odd, but what the idea of play share is that if you sit at my table and you're the only one who's constantly talking, and even when other characters are doing something, oh, my character's there as well. Oh, my character's there as well. Oh, my character's doing the same thing that they're doing. You're not sharing, you're just trying to be in every single scene, every single moment, you're trying to play on your own and push the others out of the way. I'm looking for a player who's going to go, I ask so-and-so what their opinion is, and then so-and-so goes off and does something. I don't follow. I sit quietly and just write in my journal. Let so-and-so have a moment of glory where they're talking to the NPCs and the like. Don't always just follow along. Sometimes it's about letting others shine and you're basically there just to provide support. So there's a balance between how much screen time your character gets, and the player is the one who's responsible for controlling that. So if the player is someone who has a very reserved character that never wants the limelight, that's equally as bad, in my opinion, and someone that I wouldn't want at my table. I want people who are all engaged, who are all going to tell a story, but who are also all willing to share the limelight with one another, so that each character gets a chance to shine and be the hero. So for me, those are the three critical elements, plus the three components that make up each of those elements, that will determine whether or not I want to play with this person. If I get all three of those components, I will be super happy to play with that player any day of the week, because it means they're going to be engaging. Now, there are obviously a whole lot of other things on top of this, which one could then look at. And I didn't break them down here because that's not the core of what I was looking for. If they're funny, if they are eloquent, if they are entertaining, those are benefits. If they are polite, if they're courteous, if they show up on time, those are benefits, absolutely. But to me, those are fundamentals of being a decent human being, not necessarily fundamentals of being a good player. So this is what I look for as a player. As a human, I look for a whole bunch of other things, and there are videos on this channel, as a matter of fact, of what those elements are. Anyway, what do you look for in fellow players when you are trying to find those wonderful, remarkable, absolutely essential elements of our role-playing game, the player? What do you look for? Let me know down below so that we can all learn to look for different things, or for perhaps the commonalities of things, so we can strive to actually embody those ourselves. And then the next question I have to ask is, are you a player like this? Am I someone who has all of this? And I think I am. I think I'm pretty good at these three things. I hope so, anyway. Well, only time will tell. Until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming. Okay, so I don't see anywhere where I can hit the like button, but I do kind of like, oh, here's a game just for 13 to 15-year-olds, newest GM, new players, lovely. Okay, that's great. I could subscribe to something like that. I mean, I'm only 14, well, mentally anyway. Relatively new GM in need of patient and open-minded players. Oh, lovely. Well, I hope that that was only made 2-3 days ago. There we go. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay. I think I could subscribe to this. I think I certainly could. Right, no GM required, number of players 5. Fate system, there we go, that's always exciting. Yeah, okay. Well, then I should probably hit some bells here, Goblin Bells, to make sure that I get notified of when these tables are active.